Well, of course, thank you very much to the Foreign Minister for also accepting to take few questions. And I'm going to be asking you a little bit about Europe, Minister. You sit also with the other foreign ministers of Europe, and we all know if this effort that you are talking about, if it is not made to be global, and let's start with Europe, then it will not really have any meaning. So are you in touch with other European counterparts? Are you discussing this? Where are you going with this?
I think that this has recently, of course, ended up on and moved up the agenda of the European Union as well, because we've seen, I might say, for the first time, really serious attempts to reduce freedom of speech and
Yes.
also hinder the work of independent media in Europe. And maybe this is something that we never thought we would have to actually address and keep on the European Union agenda, but it has been growing in attention and also seriousness. And I would say that this is also something that already the previous government started to work on to make sure that we can put it on the political agenda of the European Union. Not that we have many instruments. We don't have sort of the legal framework and instruments to be very effective in doing so. But we've started with an organized dialogue with those countries where we see that there are breaches of the main principles and values set out in our treaties. And this is how it starts, and also with the help of the Council of Europe. This is how we address it as of today. But I think this will continue to be a concern, and also something that we really have to look at how to sharpen our instruments, or get the right instruments to be able to intervene. Because this has to do with the sheer value base that
Absolutely.
we... And
Are you planning on legislating any laws that could be perhaps adopted across the European Union?
Well, I think this is the discussion that will finally come. If we see that this is not enough to actually stop these attempts of closing down media outlets or silencing journalists or criticism, and then it means also that we will have to really look at what else we need.
Sure.
But today we don't have sort of the directives that we can use immediately and
Yes, which needs
yeah,
to be really
apply.
done very quickly. One thing that really struck me, we were in a group of journalists all this morning, and we found the discussions extremely useful. But one of my colleagues, a Swedish colleague, she told me that she was rather depressed and that she was scared because she's subjected to intimidation. Her mailbox is full of hate mail, etc. In Sweden itself, and another colleague said somebody is actually going to court. They were taken to court. So are you also in Sweden itself, are you looking at strengthening these laws and perhaps making them more prevalent to what we are experiencing today?
I think you always have to be willing to look at whether the legislation is enough, or if it is something wrong with the implementation. But I think this is also a phenomenon that has been sort of increasingly visible lately, and that has to do with the use of internet and social media, where this hate speech and the attacks, very vicious attacks on especially women journalists, or those that are just public figures and strong profiles in Swedish society. And of course we see it as politicians as well. And so what was meant to be a channel for better communication, sometimes you just have to say, well, I could totally ignore the comments because they are just so vicious, and they don't give anything. They don't contribute to a proper debate. So I think we always have to be vigilant, and we always have to be prepared to do whatever it takes to protect people. But I don't think that this is something basically wrong with the legislation that we have, but it is really part of a bigger political society and bigger political picture in society that we we have to address.
Can I also press you on something? Usually we come, we meet, we have meetings and we have conferences, but there is no follow-up. So can we say that you will be inviting us next year here, and we're going to be sitting and discussing what has happened during the year and what we did right?
I think it's a good idea to make it into something that is how can I answer anything else? I think it's a good idea to turn it into a regular event where at least we do the follow-up and check on the follow-up, that we can see improvements. But I also think it's time for women to stand up and fight and just counter all this hatred and the misogynistic sort of speech that we see, and it's awful how women are pushed back, and we cannot accept this, because from being depressed by everything from some of the leaders' statements that we see in the world today to what we see on social media, I think we just have to say, all right, we have to work even harder, and we just have to organize ourselves, come together, and do these kind of events as well, and find strength in supporting each other.
Thank you. We will be counting on you as a woman. Thank you very, very much. Please, a good applause for the Minister. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.